Hello everyone, in this video we are going to discuss about web buckling. So we have to design the beam in all these criteria. Of course, so far we have discussed about the major criteria, primary criteria. So design. So in design of beams, we are having the two criteria. One is primary criteria and another is secondary criteria. So if we take primary criteria, in primary criteria there exists two cases again: strength and serviceability. So if we take strength, in strength again two criteria, that is bending and shear. Serviceability is nothing but mainly deflections. Of course, we have to take corrosion, fire resistance, etc. also. Clear? So these are the primary criteria. Next, secondary criteria. In this secondary criteria, again there exist subcases. That is flange buckling, B, web buckling, C, web crippling. So these are the things that we should consider whenever we are going for a design of beams. So if we see here, design of beams consists of two criteria, primary criteria and secondary criteria. So if we take into primary criteria, so there in primary criteria, mainly we are going to consider strength and serviceability. In that strength, we are going to consider mainly strength in bending and strength in shear. So that is what we have discussed so far: design bending strength and design shear strength. So if we see here, in design of bending strength, so there we have classified, or there we have designed it in two cases, that is laterally supported beam and lateral unsupported beam. So there the lateral supportness of beam depend upon compression flange. Agree or not? So that is what flange buckling means. Okay, that is what flange buckling means. Here in the primary criteria itself, we have taken up care about the secondary criteria. Next is serviceability criteria, means deflections. Of course, we have discussed. So far we have discussed about these two primary criteria. Now coming to the secondary criteria, flange buckling, so which is already done. So now we are left with web buckling and web crippling. So those are the secondary criteria. So for primary criteria, in the name itself, whenever we are going for a design of beams, these should be given priority, or this should be addressed at first. Okay, they should be addressed at first, or you can say they are of immediate concern. Clear? After that, we go for secondary criteria. So these are the things we should consider in the design of beams. So now keep an heading the web buckling and crippling. So first keep an heading web buckling, after that web crippling. So we'll discuss about those two criteria and causes for those criteria. And we know those causes for this bending and deflection and shear. Those are the concepts of strength of materials itself. Of course, there are also concepts of strength of materials, but you have not discussed those in strength of materials. But regarding this bending, shear, and deflections, we have discussed in and out in strength of materials. Clear? But here we have discussed the very same things in design point of view. Clear? So keep reading web buckling. So why this web buckling occurs? So just now I explained, previously I explained. So this web buckle occurs because of web is in pure shear, because of diagonal tank compression will develop, and because of the diagonal compression, this web buckle takes place. Agree or not? So this web buckle is due to diagonal compression. Diagonal compression. So it means, again I'm going to draw the diagram. Okay, so this is the I section. So I'm going to show you the longitudinal view also. So take it as a simply supported beam. So here where the point load is there. Clear? So later I'll explain in this diagram. First you see here. So obviously if I show the same load here, this is how the load is there on the cross section P. Now because of the excessive shear force, okay, because of excessive shear force, it produces diagonal compression. So the diagonal compression is the main cause for web buckling. So assume that web buckling is take place, then web is going to buckle like this in this case. So this is how it means here. So assume this as a web. So my palm has a web. So because of this load, okay, because of this load, it is going to buckle. See here. This is how it is going to buckle. So this is known as web buckling. Clear? So this happens because of excessive shear force. First draw the diagram. So now there is a one condition to prevent this web buckling. So if that condition is going to satisfy, then web buckling will not take place. But if that condition is not satisfied, then web buckling will occur in that particular I section. So that condition is if d by tw is less than 67 epsilon. We know that what is epsilon? Epsilon is nothing but under root fy by 250. So mainly we are going to use mild steel. So in most number of cases, this epsilon comes out to be 1. So if this is the case, if d by tw, we know what is d. D is nothing but depth of the web, and tw is the thickness of the web. So if this d by tw is less than 67 epsilon, then web buckling not occur. Okay, then web buckling not occurs. Okay, that is a condition. But if T by TW greater than 67 epsilon, then obviously web buckling occurs. Agree or not? Obviously web buckling occurs. Then web buckling occurs. Agree or not? So if that d by tw is less than 67, no need to worry about web buckling. It means the web is not going to buckle like this. But if it is not the case, it means if d by tw is greater than 67 epsilon, then web buckling occurs. So in this case, we have to design the web in buckling also. It means because of the diagonal compression, so we have to design it in that web buckling, and we as far as possible we have to prevent it. Okay, we have to prevent that web buckling. So how to prevent it? So for that, if you observe here the load is there. Okay, so because of this load, we know that bending moment and shear force will generate. So now that the total bending moment, most of the bending moment is taken by the flanges, and the total shear is taken by the web. Because of that only we have taken that web is in pure shear. That is the reason it is subjected to bending diagonal compression, and because of it is buckling. So now here where the load is there, so maximum buckling will start from here, and here there is no load. So here the buckling or that load is 0. So here the load is maximum P, and here the load is 0. So based on that, throughout the, so before this as a web is buckling, so before this as a web is buckling, we are going to assume that web as an imaginary column. So in the design of web, okay, the design of web in buckling because of diagonal compression, we are going to take that web as a imaginary column fixed between two flanges. Okay, first let us go that concept and after come to this load distribution. So first we are going to assume that web as imaginary column. Fixed between two flanges. Okay, so it means we are going to take web as imaginary column fixed between two flanges. So if we see the load distribution, so this is the center, or you can say the neutral axis. This is the center or neutral axis. So obviously this load is going to distribute. So here there occurs a maximum load, and if you proceed towards the depth, that load will nullify, and finally here it is zero. So that load will decrease. So now at what line or at what angle it will distribute? That is the question. So this is how the load is going to distribute. Okay, this is how the load is going to distribute. Here where the maximum load on the column of this, so we are going to consider web as a column. So at the beginning the load is maximum P, and if you proceed towards the depth or if you proceed towards the down, the load will distribute and its intensity will decrease. So finally it is zero here. Okay, so as we discussed that actually this load is placed on a plate that is known as bearing plate. Here it is a bearing plate. So bearing plate we compare with it a slab column base, whether it is a slab base or gusset base, mostly like a slab base. So this bearing plate we can compare it with column base. The reason, if you place the directly concentrated load on the web or on the flange, sorry, if you place directly the concentrated load on the flange, what happens? Bearing takes place. To prevent that bearing, we are going to place bearing plate. So here the load is P, and as we discussed, this load is going to be distributed like this. If you proceed towards the bottom, okay, towards the depth of the bottom, it is going to be distributed. Now, with what angle it is going to distribute, that is the question. And as we know that here the load value is maximum on this column of web and minimum at the down. Okay, at the top of the web, load is maximum, at bottom of the web, load is minimum. So based on that, we are going to consider load at the middle, average, okay, average value. So now, what is this dispersion line? Angle of the dispersion line. How to decide it? Any idea? Come on, think. Why? Because why I'm asking this question is, you know it. The concept is known to you. So because of that, I'm posing this question. So think, what is the load dispersion line angle? Obviously, stick to the basic or come to the point. Why the web buckling is take place? Web buckling is take place due to the diagonal compression developed due to pure shear in the web. Agree or not? Now, what is the direction of diagonal tension or compression? What is the direction? It is a 45 degrees. Agree or not? So at the 45 degrees of the load, the diagonal tension and diagonal compression take place. So now the load dispersion angle is also 45 degrees. So now to calculate this B. So assume that width of this bearing plate as a small b. Agree. And we know that this is total is h by 2. Okay, total is h by 2. So 45 degrees means, so this is 1. If it is 1, this is also 1. So this is also h by 2. And this is also h by 2. And this is b. So now total b is equal to b plus h. Agree or not? So b plus h. So now what is the area that is undergoing compression in this web? So the area of web which is undergoing buckling. So area of the web which is undergoing buckling is B into TW. So this is the weight and the thickness. So that is the area. Now what is its buckling strength? Okay, design buckling strength. Design buckling strength of web. So we represent it with like this. So as it is web is subjected to buckling. So whenever any material is subjected to buckling, we have to use the formula what we have adopted in column based on Perry Robertson approach. So what is that? PWB is nothing but AE into FCD. What is FCD? Design strength in buckling, design strength of web in buckling. So what is its formula? That factor chi into Fy into 1.1, that chi is 1 by 5 plus under root 5 square minus lambda square. Again that phi is equal to 0.5 into 1 plus lambda into, alpha into lambda minus 0.2 plus lambda square. And then lambda is a non-dimensional standardized ratio and alpha is imperfection factor. That here we have to take as a 0.49, the same thing. So now whatever the design buckling strength of web we have calculated, it should be less than, it should be greater than or equal to that load which is producing buckling. P. That is the condition. So take it up. So far we have discussed about web buckling due to the heavy concentrated load in the span. Is that okay? It means web buckling in the span we have discussed, and of course we have seen the load dispersion within the span because of that heavy concentrated load. Now let us see web buckling at the support due to the reaction. So here the reaction, we know at the support the reaction is going to develop. Now because of that reaction also web buckling is going to take place, and that to where that web buckling will occur, at the support. Is that okay? Now this is the I section, longitudinal view of the I section, and this is the cross section of I section. That is what we know. Now coming to this, in this case or here, the beam is placed on the column. Here the support is nothing but column. Now beam is placed on the column by using a bearing plate. Is that okay? In the same way, in previous case also we have discussed that in the same way, the heavy concentrated load is placed on the flange of an I section by making use of bearing plates. Both the bearing plates are having the same function. Is that clear? Now here this is the bearing plate. In this case, this is the bearing plate. Clear? This is the bearing plate. Bearing plate. Whose width? Okay, whose width is either equal or less or more than width of the column. Of course, in this case, I have shown the equal width for the support and bearing plate, but in some cases it may be less or equal, and that to this bearing length, width of this bearing plate. Okay, width of this bearing plate is called with one technical term that is known as stiff bearing length. It means this B is called as stiff bearing length. Stiff bearing length. Is that okay? It means this width of this bearing plate is called with one technical term that is stiff bearing length. Is that okay? Now, here in this case, the load is dispersed. Our assumption we assume that load is going to disperse only in one direction, that is into the span. Unlike in previous case, in which we have assumed the load dispersion in both the directions of that bearing plate. But in this case, the dispersion is assumed only in one direction. Okay, the dispersion is assumed only in one direction. And already discussed at the action of the load, or at the point of action of the force, its magnitude is very high, and if you move away from that force, that value of the force or that magnitude of that force reduces gradually, and it became minimum or in some cases zero at the top. Okay, at the top in this case, at the top this value R will become very, very less, or in some cases zero also. Because of that reason, in the calculation of web buckling strength, in the calculation of design web buckling strength, we consider web cross section at the center. Okay, at this location we consider. And a load dispersion line, as discussed in the previous case, is assumed to disperse with an angle 45 degree. That means one vertical is to one horizontal, simply to say. Okay, one vertical is to one horizontal. Now, what is the width of the web at this location? We usually consider it as a B. Okay, B. So this B is equal to this width. Okay, this width means bearing plate width or stiff bearing length, B plus This one. So how many units we have proceeded? We have proceeded in vertical direction h by 2. Why? Because exactly at the half we are considering. Okay, exactly at the half we are considering. Then how many units we need to proceed in horizontal direction also? Exactly the same units. That is 1 unit. Means h by 2. So here width is b plus h by 2. Okay, width is b plus h by 2. Now effective area we can calculate in this case as that b plus thickness of the web. Okay, that b plus thickness of the web. And here this is the overall height h. Is it clear? Now web buckling strength PWB. Okay, web buckling strength PWB is equal to effective area into FCD. Now effective area is nothing but the same formula B into TW, but this B is different in comparison to the previous case. So in previous case B is nothing but B plus H. Why? Because there the load dispersion is assumed in both the directions, but in this case it is assumed only in one direction. Clear? So it is simply B plus H by 2 and into TW is the area, and this is FCD. For safe design or for web to not buckle, okay, for the web to not buckle because of this reaction at the support, this web buckling strength, okay, this web buckling strength should be greater than or equal to the reaction at the support. Okay, reaction at the support. Is that okay? If this condition is ensured, then there is no web buckling at the support because of that reaction. Okay, because of that reaction. Now, whether in this case or in previous case, that is buckling, okay, web buckling at the support or in the span, okay, we need to calculate FCD. Okay, for getting the web buckling strength either at the support or in the span, we require FCD. Clear, everyone? Now this FCD is calculated by making use of one parameter that is known as slenderness ratio. Now this is calculated. Okay, now this is calculated by making use of one parameter that is known as slenderness ratio. Slenderness ratio. As we know, slenderness ratio means effective length upon minimum radius of gyration. So here effective length we represent with L effective and R minimum. This is slenderness ratio. Now based on this ratio or this parameter, we calculate this FCD. How to calculate this FCD already we have discussed, but here also briefly I'll explain how to calculate FCD. First let us see how to calculate slenderness ratio in this case, that is in web buckling. Okay. Now coming to the L effective, there exists one standard value for this L effective. L effective is taken as 0.7 D. Clear? L effective is taken as 0.7 D. The reason in web buckling, okay, in designing the web in web buckling, we assume that web has imaginary column fixed in between two flanges, right? That is what already we have discussed. Therefore, for that column, the effective length is 0.7 D. Now, what is D here? D is the depth of the web. Okay, D is equal to depth of the web. Depth of web. Okay, how to calculate this depth of the web? Let us see. Okay, listen carefully. At the junction of the flange and web, there is a curvature, or there exists an increase in area with curvature. Okay, there exists increase in area with curvature, and that increase in area is known as fillet. It means basically there exists fillet at the junction of the flange and web. Okay, now that curvature fillet, okay, that curvature fillet will have some radius. Is that okay? This is the radius, as here it is provided with some curvature. So this is the radius of that curvature, R, on both sides. Okay, so that radius of curvature for any cross section is known as a root radius. So what is that R? R is called as root radius. See here this R is reaction. Okay, don't confuse with these two R's. Here this R is a reaction, means force, and here this R is a root radius. This R is a root radius, and we know that this is the thickness of the web. Sorry, thickness of the flange. This is the thickness of the flange TF. In the same way, at the top also there exists fillet, and which is having curvature. So for that curvature again there exists radius. That radius is known as root radius. So here also we are having some curvature. This is R and this is also R. And this is the thickness of the flange. Thickness of the flange. Now thickness of web is nothing but this is the thickness of the web. Sorry, depth of the web, not thickness. Sorry, this is the depth of the web. So from this diagram, okay, from this diagram, D can be calculated by subtracting twice the root radius plus thickness of the flange from this overall depth. Okay, from this overall depth of the dissection, it means D is equal to H minus 2 into TF plus R. This way we calculate D. Upon calculating the D for dissection, we calculate effective length for that web, which is going to buckle because of reaction or heavy concentrated load P. Is that okay? This is effective length. Now coming to the minimum radius of gyration, R or simply R or R minimum. We make use of very fundamental formula. What is that formula? Ratio of under root moment of inertia by area of the web. Okay, ratio of under root moment of inertia of the web by area of the web. Now, moment of inertia of the web and area of the web is to be considered at the point of action of the load or reaction. Now, in this case, the load is acting at this point. Okay, load is acting at this point. Now, at this point, what is the area for the web? So, at that point, area of the web is stiff bearing length B. Okay, stiff bearing length B into thickness TW. Now, moment of inertia at that point is B TW cube by 12. Let me see, simply BD cube by 12 only. Okay, BD cube by 12 only. Now, substitute these terms in this formula. Then R becomes I web is nothing but B TW cube by 12 and area is nothing but B TW cube. Upon cancelling the common terms, okay, upon cancelling the common terms, we are left with TW upon root 12. This is the minimum radius of gyration. Okay, this is the minimum radius of gyration. Now dividing this to L effective by R minimum, as I said here, we'll get slenderness ratio some value K. Okay, by dividing this 0.7 D and TW by root 12, we'll get one ratio or we get some value that is known as slenderness ratio. Okay, that is known as slenderness ratio. Now by making use of this slenderness ratio and 9C, okay, table 9C of IS 800 2007, we can calculate this FCD value. Okay, we can calculate this FCD value by linear interpolation, which is what already discussed while discussing the questions on lacing and batting. Is that okay? So FCD is calculated by making use of this calculated slenderness ratio and table 9C of IS 800 2007, which is what already discussed. In this way, we find out FCD. After finding out that FCD and calculating with the area, okay, area of the web at the center, okay, area of the web at the center, which is calculated by assuming a load dispersion line, okay, which is calculated with the help of a load dispersion line, or by assuming a load dispersion line, which is making an angle 45 degrees with horizontal, or you can say in other way, one vertical is to one horizontal dispersion. We'll calculate this effective area in this way, here like this. Finally, whatever the web buckling strength we have calculated, it should be greater than either the reaction if it is at the center or heavy concentrated load if it is in the span. So this is all about web buckling. Okay, this is all about the web buckling phenomena and how to check the web for not to buckle. Is that clear, everyone? Take it on.